part of what I see that's been lost in teaching history is we don't teach local history. We teach, you can go in any classroom in this country and people will talk and will be teaching about almost any classroom, not me, I'm not gonna say everyone, but almost any of them. And they're talking about Dr. King and his role in history. That's important. Absolutely. People should know that. But what about the people outside the door of that classroom? What about the people in that community? How long did it take people across the nation to know about Tulsa? How many kids in Tulsa didn't know about Tulsa?
Okay.
If we teach our kids our local history, we have an opportunity to diversify it. So I think, yes, we're gonna be teaching about, the things that happened during the Civil War and all these other things, but you're also going to be talking about, well, during the Civil War, we had people from this community that signed up to be U.S. colored troops.
Okay.
So, I mean, you start to talk about the local heroes and it becomes more real, I think, to people when they can walk out the door and say, at that place, at this date, your great grandfather did this. He was the first one to integrate the school that you're sitting in right now, because they're not going to be taught that. They're not going to understand it unless they're taught. So they go through the whole school and say Brown versus Board of Education was an important decision in desegregating the school, but yet they don't know their grandfather's role. So we've got to figure out how to get back to teaching history from a local perspective, still making sure we're teaching the national history and the international history and the impact of it. But what about the local history? And that's when it comes down to the Freedom Rides. I mean, what happened here in Montgomery changed the trajectory of the Freedom Rides, and it changed the trajectory of the Civil Rights Movement. But it happened in a place, in a local community, where a lot of people still think, they come to this bus station and still will ask, well, which of these buses was Mrs. Parks on? They still don't know the difference. And so as long as we're not teaching the people in this community about where these places where Mrs. Parks lived during the time, and those communities that sustained the movement, if we're not teaching the people in this community about urban removal, excuse me, urban renewal, if we're not teaching them about how interstates came through and tore down these Black communities and the Black business districts disappearing, if we're not teaching them that, then how are they going to know? They're going to still think, well, the important history happened somewhere else.